Picture this. The year is 1942, and the world is in the throes of the Second World War. The globe is a chessboard, and the major powers are moving their pieces, setting the stage for a struggle that will define the course of history. In the Pacific, a storm is brewing. The United States, still reeling from the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese forces on December 7, 1941, has been thrust into the turmoil of the global conflict. The echoes of the explosions that shattered the tranquility of that Sunday morning are still reverberating, propelling the nation into a war it had hoped to avoid. The months following Pearl Harbor see a series of battles across the Pacific as the Japanese Empire expands its reach, seemingly unstoppable. From the jungles of the Philippines to the waters of the Coral Sea, the conflict rages on, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. But amidst the chaos, a tiny speck of land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean comes into focus. Midway Atoll, barely 6 square miles of coral and sand, but its strategic importance is immeasurable. Midway sits at the heart of the Pacific, a vital stepping stone on the path to the mainland United States for the Japanese and a crucial outpost for the Americans. As the Japanese forces set their sights on Midway, the United States prepares to make a stand. Their fleet, though battered and bruised, is not beaten. The Americans know the stakes. They understand that losing Midway would open the door for the Japanese to threaten Hawaii and potentially the west coast of the United States itself. The chessboard is set, the pieces are moving. The Japanese, confident and ambitious, seek to seize Midway and deliver a knockout blow to the United States. The Americans, determined and resolute, prepare to defend their outpost in the Pacific, aware that the fate of their nation could hang in the balance. As tensions rise, the stage is set for one of the most decisive battles of the Second World War, the Battle of Midway. June 4, 1942, dawn breaks and the Battle of Midway begins. As the sun rises, a sense of urgency floods over the American forces. They had intercepted the Japanese naval communications, a strategic advantage that would prove pivotal. The cryptologists, having cracked the Japanese code, revealed the enemy's plans, setting the stage for an American ambush. The American forces, armed with this priceless intelligence, were no longer the hunted, but the hunters. Under the command of Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, the U.S. Navy positioned their forces to meet the Japanese head-on. The stage was set. The Battle of Midway was about to unfold in earnest. As the Japanese fleet approached Midway, they were oblivious to the trap that had been set. The American forces, anticipating their arrival, launched their aircraft from carriers hidden beyond the horizon. The Japanese carriers, powerful and imposing, were soon under attack. The American aircraft swooped down, raining destruction on the unsuspecting enemy. The attacks were relentless. The Japanese carriers, once the pride of their navy, were now smoking ruins. The Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu were set aflame, their decks littered with the wreckage of destroyed aircraft. The Hiryu, although damaged, was the only one left operational. But the Americans were not without losses. The USS Yorktown, a valiant warrior of the sea, was mortally wounded. Despite attempts to save her, she eventually capsized and sank, taking with her a piece of American naval history. Yet the day was not over. As the smoke cleared, the reality of the situation began to sink in. The Japanese, who had started the day with confidence, now found themselves reeling. Their naval superiority was shattered. Their carriers, the heart of their fleet, were in ruins. The Americans, on the other hand, had seized the initiative. The tide of battle shifts and the Japanese forces find themselves on the back foot. The struggle continues into June 5th and 6th, but the momentum of the battle has shifted. As dawn broke on the 5th day, the American forces, fueled by resolve and desperation, launched relentless attacks on the Japanese fleet. Squadron after squadron of American aircraft roared into the Pacific skies, their sights set on the ominous Japanese carriers. The seas erupted in fury as bombs and torpedoes found their marks. The Japanese carriers, once symbols of naval might, succumbed to the relentless onslaught. The Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, struck multiple times, were swallowed by the unforgiving ocean. The Hiryu, the last remaining carrier, fought on bravely into the late afternoon before it too was silenced by American fire. The sinking of these carriers struck a massive blow to the Japanese naval forces, a blow from which they would never fully recover. As the sun set on June 6th, The Japanese forces, battered and beaten, began to retreat. The once formidable fleet, now a shadow of its former self, turned back towards the homeland. June 7th marked the end of the Japanese offensive in the Pacific, a retreat that symbolized the turning of the tide in the Pacific theater. Yet, this victory came at a great cost. The casualty count was high on both sides. The Americans, while victorious, mourned the loss of the USS Yorktown and hundreds of brave souls. The Japanese, on the other hand, suffered even more heavily, losing 4 carriers, a cruiser, and thousands of experienced crew and pilots. The ocean, a silent witness to the carnage, became a watery grave for these brave men. The Battle of Midway was not just a clash of fleets, but a test of resolve, strategy, and bravery. It was a testament to the unpredictability of warfare, where the underdogs could turn the tide against a seemingly invincible enemy. As the smoke cleared and the waters calmed, the world bore witness to a scarred Pacific and a changed balance of power. The Battle of Midway ends, leaving behind a scarred Pacific and a changed world. In the wake of the Battle of Midway, the balance of power in the Pacific shifts dramatically. The significance of this battle cannot be overstated within the broader narrative of the Second World War. The Battle of Midway marked the decisive turning point in the Pacific War. The Japanese, who until then had been on an aggressive offensive, found themselves suddenly on the back foot. They had lost 4 of their frontline carriers, crippling their naval capacity. The American victory held immense strategic significance. For the first time since Pearl Harbor, the United States had wrested control of the Pacific from the Japanese. This victory served as a beacon of hope, a signal that the tide of war was turning. It set the stage for subsequent American advances in the Pacific, leading ultimately to the end of the war. The Battle of Midway, a pivotal moment in history, a testament to the bravery of those who fought, and a reminder of the devastating power of war.